Hey friends, welcome to TechHarvesting. In today's video, we are going to discuss about Redis, which is kind of like a very important part of our application if you're building a big production-ready application, because of course your application might get a bit slow because of the database. It might take a long time to run SQL queries if you're using something like MySQL or Postgres, or even if you're using something like MongoDB, it might take a long time to load things. So today we're going to have a look at how Redis works, and Redis is an in-memory database. I'll explain what that means in the video, and it's kind of like a fast database. It's a lot faster than a normal typical database like MongoDB or Postgres. So we're going to have a look at how that works, and yeah, let's get started. And also, before we start, if you're not yet subscribed, please subscribe to my channel, and yeah, let's start. So to get started, let's have a look at what Redis actually is. So Redis is known as an in-memory database, which means it stores all the data that we use in the memory. Not like other typical databases like MongoDB or PostgreSQL, which stores the data on the hard drive. So what happens is, if you are to restart your machine, the data on this Redis server is going to be deleted. So it cannot be used as an ideal database where everything you store is going to be stored in there, and for example, if you restart the machine, it does not persist in there. So what Redis is mostly used as is like a wall between the original database like MongoDB or PostgreSQL. So you're going to have this Redis sit in front of the database so that it can be much faster. Since this is stored on the memory and not on the hard drive, Redis is extremely fast, up to 10 to 50 times can be much faster than the normal database like MongoDB, because it takes more time to fetch the data from the hard drive when compared to fetching it from the memory. So that's the reason a lot of people use Redis. It's very fast. So if you're making some kind of application and there's some data that does not change much often, then you could use Redis and make it stay between the database so that your performance of your application increases. Now let's go into the desktop, and I'm going to show you how you can install Redis and use it. So now let's have a look at how we can install Redis on our system. But if you're using Windows, well, you can't run Redis on a system, but there are a few things you could do instead of running it directly on a system. First, you could use WSL, which stands for Windows Subsystem for Linux. It's a project by Microsoft which helps us to run Linux kind of like in a virtual machine, but not exactly a virtual machine. It's like uses some other components and makes it much easier. And if you're using an insider build of Windows, you can just do WSL-install from your command line and it'll install WSL for you. But if you're not, then you have to go ahead to the WSL website or the GitHub repository. I'll link one of them down below, and then you can install it from there. Otherwise, you can go ahead and run a virtual machine. You can use VirtualBox or KVM or any of those things, and you can install the ISO file for the distribution and run it. Right now, I'm using Arch Linux, which is a Linux distribution. And for me to install Redis, all I have to do is to type in sudo pacman-sy redis. Well, if I don't have the Y also, it does not matter. And you're probably mostly on an Ubuntu or a Debian based distribution, so what you will need to do is to run sudo apt install redis. Okay, you have to run this command. It might take some time depending on internet connection, or it'll be really quick and snappy. So you can go ahead and run the command to install Redis, and once it's done, you can go ahead and run the command redis-server, hit enter, and you'll see that Redis is started. Redis 6.2.5 is the version that I'm using. It's running in standalone mode, and it shows the port on which Redis is listening. So this means that the Redis server has started, so that we can go onto this Redis CLI and run commands so that we can get data and put them create data in our database. So now let's go ahead, create a new terminal tab, and we're going to start Redis CLI, which means we can control Redis from our command line. So all I need to do is to run the command redis-CLI, and also if you install Redis, this is already there in your system. Hit enter, and you see there's this prompt that we have, and we can enter the information, and you can see that it's listening on a local host. So 127.0.0.1 is our local host, :63979, which is our port. So Redis always listens on this port by default. So you can run the command clear to clear the screen, even in Redis, the CLI. So that was the first command actually which we ran, but that's not actually of much use. So the first command that we're going to run is the set command. And also this Redis is kind of like JSON. It has a key value store, so you have a key and you have a value. It's very similar to JSON. You can have even arrays and all those kind of stuff. And if you don't know what JSON is, I have a video. I'll link it down in the description. So first we'll learn the set command, which helps us to set a new value and a key. So what you have to do is to type set. Then you can see this autocomplete that Redis gives, but now let's just stick to what we're going to do. So for example, we can set the name as Naseel. If you hit enter, it gives us OK, which means it set a key of Naseel with a value, key of name with the value of Naseel. So once you give set, you're going to give the key in there. So once you give the key, then you're going to give the value, and you're just going to type in set, key, and the value. Now if you want to get the value of that key, you can just type in get name, hit enter, and you can see we are getting Naseel. That's because we set the name as Naseel. That's why when we run the get command, we can get the name, and returns it as a string, because Redis most of the time when we use it, it returns everything as strings. Next, let's have a look at the DEL command, which is used for deleting things from our database. So what we need to do is to type in DEL. Oops, that's a mistake. DEL, and you have to type in the key that we want to delete. So before we set the value with a key and a value. So now after that we got the value for the key by using the get command, and now we're going to delete the key and its value. So what we need to do is type in DEL, which is delete, and the key. So which key do we want to delete? So we can type in name, hit enter. So integer 1, which means we are successfully deleted from the database. And see, if you run the get name again, you see NIL, which means it's not there, it's undefined. So which means we actually deleted from the database and it no longer exists. So there's no key with the name of name. Yeah. Next, let's have a look at another command called exists. So I'll just clear the screen and set the name as Naseel again. Oops, that's the wrong spelling. Name as Naseel. Now if we get the name, we have Naseel. Now let's have a look at the exists command, which means it tells if a key is there or not. So for example, if we type in exists name, hit enter, it gives us 1, which means yes, there is a key called name. That's because we already created a key called name here. We did set name Naseel, and when we got the name, we did get a value. That's because there is a key with the name Naseel. But if you delete the key and run exists name now, you get 0. Before we got 1, which means it exists, and if you get 0, it means it does not exist. So right now we are able to find out whether a key is there in a database or not. Next, let's have a look at the FLUSHALL command, which is used to completely destroy the database. Like everything that there's in the database, it's going to be destroyed. So that's also useful at times, but do not do this on a production level applications, database or anything, because everything's going to be deleted. But since Redis is used for caching, it's not much of a problem because it just fetches everything from the main database. So now to do that, I'll just clear the screen and I'll set a new key with the value of Naseel again because we deleted it. Now if we get it, we get Naseel. So now what we're going to do is to run the FLUSHALL command and remove everything from our database. So we do flush all, hit enter, and it says OK, which means it's deleted everything. So now if we do get name, it shows nothing. Now let's have a look at the keys command, which is used to find all the keys in our database, or we can also specify some pattern which we want to find. For now, I'm just going to show you how we can find every single key in our database. So let's set a few keys. So set name Naseel, set age 13, clear. Now to see everything in the database, every single key, what we need to type is the keys command, keys, and it shows pattern in there, which means what kind of pattern do you want, like how much information, what like give kind of like a regular expression you would use in some programming language. So it's kind of like searching. So if you put star in here, we get everything, so all the keys. If you hit enter, you'll see there are 2 keys right now. One is name and the other is age. So these are the 2 keys in our database. Next, let's have a look at the time to live command TTL, which means like every key in Redis has an expiration time. Currently the keys which we create are not having an expiration time because we don't mention it when we created them. So first let's have a look at the expiration time of the keys that we just created, which I told you like it's not going to expire, but let's just have a look at that. So the command is TTL and you give the key, for example name, hit enter and you see -1, which means the key is there. And if you do keys star, you see I already have the name key and it has the value of Naseel as I did before. So let's make this expire in some time. For example, in 5 seconds we want this to expire. So what we do is expires, and then we give the key which we want to expire, which is the name, and hit enter, and we should give the seconds also, so 5 seconds. So if you do now, you see you get a 1, which means it's happening. So if you do a TTL name, it's giving -2 because it's no longer there. And if you do a keys star, you see we just have H because in 5 seconds it got expired and got deleted from the database. Now what if we want to mention this when we create the key itself? Like we want to create the key and we also want to tell it when it should expire, other than running another command for that. We use the SETEX command. So just like the set command, but it also sets the expiry of the command. So what we do is give the name, for example name, seconds, so after how much seconds we want this to expire. For example, I'll give 5, and the value, which is Naseel. Hit enter, you see it's okay. You do TTL 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second, -2, it's gone. So it's there for 5 seconds and after that it's gone. So that's what the SETEX command does. It's setting the key and also giving the expiry time for it. So now let's have a look at what lists are in Redis. So lists are known as arrays. You can tell them like that. If you've seen my JSON video, of course you'll know what arrays are. So I'm just going to tell it again just to make sure that you are understanding what lists are. So lists are just, technically they're just a collection of data. So for example, you have students and you want to have a number of students. For example, you could have an array of students, a list of students, and in that you could have this much number of students. So you could have, for example, Naseel, something, something, something. You can have different names inside a list. So a list is just a collection of values. Now let's see how we can create a list and how we can update the information and do other things with the lists. So now we are first going to create a list with the name of students, and let's do that right now. So to create a list, we can do LPUSH, and we're going to give a name for the list. So we can give a name of students, maybe, as I told, and give an element, which is the name of your value. So for example, Naseel, and then we can hit enter. Hit the integer 1, which means it happened. So now if you want to see what's there in a list, what you have to do is to type in LRANGE. So it's the list range. So it's like a get command, but for lists we don't use get. Then the key of the list, which is students. And then we want to get everything, so we need to give 0 and -1, which means 0 is like everything, 0 and -1, so everything between, which is everything. So we can see we have Naseel in here. That's because we added Naseel in here to the list. Now if you want to add more items, we just have to run the same command. For example, ABC, hit enter, and now if we do the LRANGE, you see that we have ABC and Naseel. But you see this ABC is at the top and not at the bottom. Now if you want to add it to the other side, you have to use the command RPUSH, which is like right push, you can tell like that. So we can run the command RPUSH instead of LPUSH. She'll push the object to the other side of the array or list actually. So somebody hit enter. Now if you once again do the LRANGE, hit enter, you'll see there is ABC, Naseel, and somebody, but somebody's at the end because we did an RPUSH and not an LPUSH. Now let's have a look at how we can remove items from a list. So we have already created the students list with 3 people, ABC, Naseel, and somebody. So now let's remove ABC from the list. For doing that, since ABC is at the top, we're going to use the LPOP command. So POP is used to remove something from the list. L is like left, list, whatever you want to call it, but it removes everything from the left side. So you can do LPOP, and you can use ABC, not ABC, you have to use the key. So we are using the student's key because we are removing the thing from the student's key. So if you type in students and hit enter, you see it returns ABC because ABC was removed, And now if you do an LRANGE, you'll see that ABC is no longer there in the list. And now similarly, if you want to remove anything at the end of the list, for example, this somebody person, I don't know who that is, it's just somebody. So to do that, we are going to use the command RPOP. So pop something from the right, so it's taking it out of the list. And the key again, which is students. Hit enter, you see somebody's returned, which means somebody was removed. And then if you do an LRANGE again, you see just Naseel is there. So you could do an LPOP or an RPOP because that's the only thing there. So let's do LPOP, students, and you see Naseel was removed. So now if you do an LRANGE, it says empty array. Next, we're going to have a look at another topic in Redis called sets, which is kind of like lists. The only difference is that the data inside sets cannot be repeated. For example, if you have the number 1 in a set, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then you can't have 1 again or any of these numbers again. So nothing in a set can be repeated. In other words, it's just like a list which has unique values. Now let's have a look at how we can create a set. So I'm just going to clear the screen and let's just flush all once again. Oh man, flush all, hit enter, so everything's removed from the database. Now let's create a set. So for doing that, we use the SAdd command, which means we're adding something to our set. It's kind of like creating the set if you don't have anything in it. Next, we're going to give the key, for example, langs for languages, and for example, we could have JavaScript, hit enter, and you see integer 1. And now if you want to read something from the set, you're going to use the SMEMBERS command. Then you're going to do the key, which is the langs. Hit enter, you see there's JavaScript in there. You could add more in there by running the same command. For example, you could add Python. Go up, you see there's Python now. So you could add more languages. You could do Go, you could do Ruby. So if you just do the SMEMBERS, you see there's all the languages which we just added. So what if we try to add the same thing again? For example, we just go ahead and we're like go. See, till now we got 1, 1, 1, 1, which means it was successfully added. But right now we got a 0, which means it was not added. And if we want to check, we can just do that again. We can see there's just 1 go, which we already added. So the second time we ran to add go, it didn't get added because it was already there in the list, I mean in the set. So now, what if we want to remove something from the set? That's also very simple. Oh, let's not clear the screen. So you do SREM, which is the command to remove something from a set, and then you give the key and the value. So this member is just the value. So the key is langs, because that's the set we added right here. We did here set this SAD, which is set add langs. So we give the list. And for example, we want to remove Ruby from the list. We just type in Ruby, hit enter. We get integer 1, which means it was removed successfully. And if you do SMEMBERS again, you will see that there's no more Ruby in the list. Now we're going to have a look at hashes, which are kind of like objects in JSON. And again, JSON and this Redis is kind of related because they both use key value pairs, and Redis is a NoSQL database. That's the reason I'm again referring to my JSON video. And it's kind of like objects because you have an object and inside that you can have key value pairs. So in Redis you have key value pairs and you can have a type of a key which has inside that a key value pair. Okay, it's not going to be confusing, yeah, but I'll just show it to you right now. Now let's go ahead and create a hash. So to create a hash, we need to run the command HSET to set something. And for example, I'm going to give me, so myself, and my name and the value. Hit enter. You see that it's created a hash with the name me, and inside that hash there's a name and the value is Naseel. I'll just show it to you once again. So you can just have inside the same me hash, you could have age and 13. Hit enter, and now it seems like it's created everything because you get the 1. And to check if it's created, you can just run the HGET command, and you can give the key, for example, me and name. So you're getting the name key from the me key. It's kind of tough to understand, but yeah, this is called as a field actually. So the field inside the key, and you can see here it's Naseel because we set the name as Naseel. And if we do the same command but for age, oops, you see there's 13. And in case something does not exist, you get this NIL in brackets. So you see this is 13 because we set the age, and this is Naseel because we set the name. Now what if we want to get everything inside this hash? Then we would do HGETALL, and we want to get everything from me. Hit enter, you get the keys and the values. So name Naseel and age 13. So that's the main thing about hashes. Now let's look at how we can delete a key from the hash. So we're going to run the command HDEL for deleting. Next to the key, which is me, I gave it here, all these places. Then the field which you want to delete. So we want to delete the age, for example. If you hit enter now, you get 1, which means it did happen. So if you do an HGETALL me, you see there's only the name and the age. So that means this thing was deleted, the age. Next is the HEXIST, and we can see if something exists. So right here we got NIL. So this is just to check if it's an NIL or not. So for example, we want to find if there is a name in me. You see it's 1 because it is there. So we saw just now that there's Naseel in there. But for example, just now as we deleted age, we can just do an HEXIST name, me, age. Hit enter, you see you get a 0. That's because there's no age because we deleted it. And again, if you want, we could just set that as age. And now if you run the command again, you see we get a 1. That's because it's already there. So that was all about the basics of Redis. We learned about sets, hashes, and we learned about lists, how we can create key value store in Redis. And I might even put a second part to this video where I'll show you how you can use Redis in a Node.js application. We'll use the same commands, but we're not using the terminal. We're going to use it with JavaScript. Yeah, so thanks for watching, and yeah, bye guys.